Hello, and welcome to the Matty B Files. My name is Matt Bigelow, and this is episode 140, where we discuss the ongoing issues of the month, which include a lot of hidden agendas. Most of the time, Japanese people don't really talk about what they think, and that's why we have Max on the show to get a perspective on what's going on behind the scenes in Japan's right-wing factions of the political spectrum. Most of the time when you hear about right-wing in the politics, in the media, it's a lot of ukiyo-e. I'm not sure if that's probably the wrong word entirely. But the kind of militarized thugs that like to go around and threaten the Korean embassy, or these kind of like pretty, far, what I would actually call far right people that want to restore the emperor to its former glory and recognize the emperor as a god or something like that. Pretty wacky stuff when you think about it. Being Canadian, we have a queen on our money, but as a concept, that's about as far as she goes. And of course, there's the Doug Stanhope joke. You have a queen, what do you also have? Dragons and fairies and stuff. It's an outdated concept, but Max represents what I would say is he's vocal, but he's coming from more about like the actual right-wing conservative politics. And recently there's been a lot of activity, of course, between Korea trying to get a lot of money out of wartime reparations, promoting comfort women statues in Manila, Philippines, and San Francisco, and things like that. And recently as well, protesting Japan's decision to withdraw from a information sharing national intelligence style of thing. And so a lot of conservatives in Japan are getting pretty pissed off about this, but you're not going to hear about that anywhere else, basically, but here. So we are going to get into that. We'll also get into some surveillance capitalism, which I am increasingly fascinated with. China's ability to create the most advanced surveillance state in the world, but not able to create clean drinking water or toilets for their citizenry. It's pretty crazy if you go to places like China, where you can see facial recognition cameras on the police officers' glasses, yet go into a bathroom and be shocked at what you see, pissing on shit. That's what you have to do there. All right. Well, that's going to be it from me. Let's tune in, and thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and also, I don't really agree with Max on a lot of this stuff. I'm interested in the perspective. I'm a paid listener for my daily work. I listen to people, and I realize that the more people I listen to, the wider perspective I have in the long run. However, that oftentimes meaning like you have to listen to some people say some occasionally disagreeable stuff. And we definitely get into that on this podcast. So just know that I'm not trying to promote or give platforms or, adhere to anybody's political leanings. I'm honestly just going, okay, what's going on? Let's talk about it. And that's what we do in this podcast. So get ready for a raucous adventure through Japan's right-wing, pissed off, probably drunk political ideologies. Thank you. Let's listen. Let's go. right, Max, we're rolling. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, to the Matty B Files.
Hello, everybody.
This is episode 140. We're coming at you on August 29th, 2019, August 28th, 2019. This is the podcast that, of course, broadcasts Tokyo subculture. And today we're doing our month in review, as we like to call it, where we summarize some of the top events going on in Japan that the mainstream media refuses to talk about.
Or they won't even look at it in a proper perspective.
Or consider these as options, because they are. And let's be honest, the journalists are bought and paid for.
They're bought and paid for.
And most of the politicians don't even actually know what's going on. They're just kind of going to meetings and supporting their base. No, I wouldn't say supporting their base. Actually, I don't like that terminology. It just implies everybody's
They're
stupid.
supporting their hidden employers.
Okay, and towing the line. Towing the line for bucks and cash.
Well, it's a nice job. It's a lot of money. I mean, hey.
Everything is paid for.
Everything is paid for. And are you going to give it all up to say something that's right?
Or are you just going to toe in line and check some check marks, go home and make bank?
But they don't read history. They don't know the phrase in English called hanging from the lamppost. That phrase, you know what that phrase means? In revolutions, when they catch the leaders that have been messing up, they hang them from the lamppost.
And in French, it's called defenestration. Fenêtre means window.
Out the window.
Yeah, out the window.
Like off the fifth floor.
That's right.
Basically, ladies and gentlemen, for your information, physically speaking, you're not going to survive anything above the third floor. So the fifth floor, sixth floor is like, hey.
I live on the fourth floor, and I've looked out the window, and I said, if I drop, I'm breaking something, that's for sure.
You're going to break a lot.
Yeah, more so. Speaking of breaking stuff, there was this young woman doing extreme yoga poses.
Was she wearing anything?
She was wearing very tight clothing, and she was in great shape, and the yoga pants were like making her ass look really good. So she was like, I got my fine ass, I got my yoga pants, I'm going to do some poses. So she was doing these extreme poses on the edge of her balcony and trying to get more likes on Instagram. And then she fell off of the balcony.
What floor?
It was about 80 feet or 45, 50 meters. And she broke 100 bones in her body. And she survived. And she went beyond getting likes on Instagram and actually made it into the mainstream media.
Really?
Yeah, congratulations to her.
I knew a girl in Koenji years ago in this band. She was a bass player in a band, and she's a Japanese girl, and she's a dirt bike rider. And she said, she's broken every bone. Yeah. But she didn't get anything on Facebook.
No.
They didn't have Facebook back then.
No. Why would you? It's the worst. Okay. It's the worst. All right. So we're going to begin today. You know what? Like when we first started doing these podcasts a few years ago now, you had like these quite extreme views on Korea.
Right.
Some of your language has become a little bit more tempered. But the actual conflict, the swelling conflict between Korea and Japan has been intensifying.
Yes.
And not only between activist groups, but I would say between South Korean activist groups that have now sort of entered into their politics in very influential ways. We, of course, have done podcasts about this in the past where, as Max's latest book points out, that if North and South Korea unifies, it might be possible for the northern military to sort of gain control of South Korean military and then use North Korean political tactics to, wage war against Japan or launch an attack in the Kyushu area. And more over the past few years, it's gone from these incidences, which were kind of, just not hippies, but on that kind of level, where it's just like, dissident groups in Japan and in Korea kind of protesting against each other sometimes. And now it's gone from Japanese people not giving a shit about what South and North Korea thinks to more and more South Korea becoming ever more politically repugnant towards Japan as a culture and Japan as a nation.
Yes.
So what
Or the existence of Japanese people in general.
Yeah. Let's just. I'll begin it this way.
Okay.
I got some news from. I was looking actually at the Korea Times to get more of a flavor. Yes. They're not nice towards Japan.
No.
Hold on a second. Do I have it? Yes. Police have launched. So over the past few weeks, we've seen South Korea walk away from a intelligence sharing cooperation.
Yes.
The month before that, South Korea was removed from a prioritized
most favored nation status. I put it this way.
But they still have access to everything they had access to before. It's just a little bit slower.
Well, you have to go like everyone else. It takes a month or so to.
Yeah,
right.
But it was due to the fact that a lot of South Korean companies were demanding wartime reparations.
No. It was due to the fact that a lot of the stuff that was coming in Japan was of sensitive nature from Japan to Korea was disappearing and couldn't be accounted for.
Oh.
And it was going to third countries, particularly countries like Iran or Syria or North Korea that had dual use, like technology dual use, military and civilian dual use. Now, personally, ladies and gentlemen, I have nothing against Iran. In fact, I'm an Iran fan. America, I think, is overly nuts about Iran.
Yeah, me too. And everyone I meet from, because there's quite a few Iranians in Tokyo in Japan,
and I have a lot of Iranian friends. I work with a lot of Iranian friends.
They call themselves not Iranians a lot of the time, but Persians, which is kind of a differentiation.
Well.
Whatever you're going to say.
However, though, the United States government has decided this, and as a South Korean government, you're going to willfully send sensitive materials to these countries which are forbidden. You're gonna piss someone off. You're gonna piss someone off, and this is why I think America's on board with Japan behind the scenes with this issue totally. And it's not about the wartime labor issues. The wartime labor issues is just another thorn in the Japanese-Korean relationship. And the wartime labor issues, by the way, I'll say it again. The Koreans were paid the same. They were Japanese citizens at the time. They were paid the same and treated the same. And
there's been several apologies and reparations.
Well, now Japan, we have a way of apologizing for things we didn't do.
Yes, and today, when you say we, you mean you as Japanese people. I am not Japanese.
Okay,
so it's not we as in Max and I.
Yes, today I left my house and I met my neighbor. She had a little child. The child's like a year and a half old.
Matt Bigelow speaking, by the way.
And I said to him, oh, hi, this is your little girl, and she's gotten bigger. And the woman said, oh, I'm so sorry that she's so noisy. It doesn't bother me, Japanese people, we always have this. We always apologize.
Yes.
We always ladies and gentlemen, that's not me personally. I'm a Japanese
Canadian, I get
right-winger,
and
I don't really apologize. So anyway, but the Koreans, this is how we've always been doing. The Koreans have this huge complex towards Japan. Huge. And during the war, I'll go over it again, they were willing and able Japanese citizens. Over 1 million Koreans volunteered for the Japanese armed forces. Like certain what people call atrocities. Okay, the killing of American prisoners in Bataan in the Philippines was done by Korean service troops, mostly.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
I do. John Toland, years ago I read that in John Toland. Of course, Nanking, as far as I know, was done by Japanese combat troops, but I don't call that atrocity. But that's a whole other story, and we'll go that later. We'll go that later. I don't call it atrocity because it's a wartime battlefield experience. It wasn't pre-planned. If it wasn't pre-planned...
What about the bio bombs?
That was pre-planned.
Yeah.
Pre-planned.
I mean, in Nanjing,
No, there wasn't any in Nanjing. There weren't any Johns.
Oh, really?
Flea bombs there may have been, but the whole Unit 731, I'll say this, and maybe we'll call it escape.
731. This is, of course, a secretive Japanese group of basically biological experimenters
on people. Now, why did they go to trial and go to prison? Because the Americans took them over, took their data, and sponsored all these people afterwards. And they did the same thing.
Bombed their headquarters in Nakano.
No. Their headquarters were not in Nakano.
Oh.
But They did the same thing with Nazi doctors in Germany who experimented on Jewish prisoners in the camps. The Americans took it over.
Right.
So, thank you very much, man. Well, you may not like that. That's that. But let's get back to the Korean thing.
Right.
And, okay, where were we?
Well, we were talking about, there's some background information for you, but we were talking about how the escalations are affecting not only on a basic level, but a political level. And I was going to say, when it gets to politics, the stupidest people start reacting on the streets.
Okay.
Because this is an example. I want to just read the news. This is from the Korea Times, dated 2019, August 25th. Police have launched a probe after a video and photos of a South Korean man allegedly threatening and beating a Japanese woman on the street went viral on social media. We have found the victim and the suspect in the alleged assault case, which occurred in the previous day, some officials said. The woman reportedly said the man began threatening her near the University District in Western Seoul when she ignored him and he followed her. He then threatened her a little bit more and consecutively started punching her and kicking her in the face as she was trying to fend off her blows as she was sitting on her ass on the street.
Okay, I can say this. Korean men have sort of a bad reputation with women. This is true. And the girl had been previously beaten in Okubo by a Korean.
The same girl?
Yeah. And she still went to... All right. But, this... And people are going to say, well, it's not all Koreans. Okay. Well, that's just,
Oh, I know. But what I'm saying is the political tensions are starting to make the stupidest people do dumb shit in the streets.
Okay, what's happening here?
That Japanese woman is obviously not the stupid person I'm talking about.
The truth of the Japanese-Korean relationship. Yeah. A little bit. I'm going to go very quickly. The Japanese, it was not a colonization of Korea. It was annexation.
And, you can, a lot of people will say, well, it's the same thing. Well,
no, it's not.
No, it's
Korean
not.
Citizens would have had the vote. Koreans were already legally Japanese by 1910. Legally Japanese. In Japan proper, they could vote in elections. They could run for office. In Japan proper.
Own grocery stores.
Anywhere in Korea or Japan, which all
it's not to say they didn't face discrimination from
there was. Of course there was. But that's people's feelings, and you cannot change people's feelings without shooting a lot of people, and it's going to make a war and trouble. It takes time. It was planned to give Koreans the vote in the total Japanese empire. All Koreans, which were Japanese, ethnic Koreans living in Korea, the vote in the empire as total by 1945. Of course, the war was going badly for Japan, so it didn't work out.
Nuclear weapons.
I have read a website on Wikipedia about the Korean Resistance Army based in Shanghai, which once Japan, of course, occupied Shanghai, took over Shanghai, they had to move. At their top, they had 339 people. Now, within that, they had a 3-star general, a 2-star general, a 1-star general, colonels, majors, captains. Now, wait a minute, 300 guys? Come on, that's a joke. Yet, this is the supposed foundation. A lot of Korea is that, when it comes down to it. They didn't have a culture. They didn't have a history much. Okay, it was a slave culture. It was ruled by a certain clique of high-ranking aristocrats, which were about 6% of the population, which were self-perpetuating. The rest of the country was basically...
thatched huts.
Slaves.
Yeah.
Slaves.
That's right. That's why most of the Korean people are named after Kim. What are the other popular last names in Korea?
Kim Pak Lee.
Kim Pak Lee.
I taught English in Korea years ago. You say Kim Pak Lee, you've got 2/3 of the class.
Yeah. But it's because most of the people didn't have last names. And Kim and Pak and Lee were royal names, so people would buy into.
That I don't know.
That's what I've heard. That's why it's
but
so
also
popular.
China does not have many names. In China, a peasant was called Old 100 Names because there are only about 100 names in China.
Right, as opposed to the 18 names there are today by the CCP.
Well.
Another story.
But in Japan, of course, there was a lot. And the Koreans are intensely jealous of Japan.
Hyakuninjo.
Because of Japanese developed a totally independent culture, and it's outside of Chinese culture. The Koreans came from somewhere in Siberia, and they adopted Chinese culture, or at least the top did, and they just sat in everyone else. So the Koreans just don't understand how to live without destroying people. Now, an interesting thing, in one of my books, I put this out.
What do you mean they don't understand how to live without destroying?
Once Japan annexed Korea,
Come on.
Once Japan annexed Korea, they decided they're going to create a society equal to Japan in Korea. This was a Japanese goal. Now, that included a police force. And they built a police force. And they had to disband it because the police force, they saw their role as robbing the regular people. Anyone below them was a potential victim. And police are different. Police, you're supposed to stop crimes and protect them. But for Koreans, this was a totally new thing. They couldn't comprehend it because in the Yi Dynasty, for like 500-600 years, there wasn't any police force. There was the army of the king, and what they did was simply rob people and beat on them. And if you were lucky, you weren't noticed. But
It was closer to a fiefdom.
It was that. And it was a very oppressive fiefdom. And they just couldn't understand the concept that police would obey an authority and that authority would mete out justice impartially. This was just...
It's like the Irish cops in Boston or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Which we you know,
so
let's let
Japan.
Donny Boy go, but let's take the other guy in.
Japan annexed Korea in 1920, and they had to import a lot more Japanese policemen annexed Korea in 1910. By 1920, they rebuild the police by bringing in Japanese to provide an example.
You know what? I don't think that in 1920 Japanese people living abroad would be the best example. You know, like these are probably regional people, or they as well.
This is not average Japanese people. These are trained policemen. And
yeah,
they were
but
trained.
Even in the 1920s, they're still going to be nuts.
Different than now, because people deeply believed in the emperor, and they believed, and they were trained.
Don't believe in the emperor. Good luck.
Whoa! No! They were trained to represent the country and to build. Japan did incredible things in Korea in 35 years.
Yeah, I also heard they kicked a lot of people in the face.
No, that was the Koreans.
So you mean like the Koreans became Japanese and the Japanese police officers?
By the end of the war, almost all Korean police were Korean in Korea, ethnic Koreans. But it was something like, it was not like two different countries. It was more like Great Britain and Scotland. This is what it was going for.
Yeah.
This is what it was going for. Today, Great Britain and Scotland don't get along the best, but they're still one country, at least.
Yeah, they're a little bit.
And this is probably where it would have gone in a certain way.
All right.
Now, you've got this huge Korean idea that Koreans are superior. I sent you a video about that Koreans founded Egypt and Sumer and India and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of stuff like that in the net. I keep bumping into it. And they have this huge superiority complex of the greatest people in the world. Because really they're not. They're a nice enough country. I mean, it's a nice enough country. It's a small country, but let me compare to another country. Albanians. I met some Albanians. Ladies and gentlemen, for your information, there are 36 Albanians in Japan. I met one. And she was nice enough. At a party and Albanian food, but Albanians just don't try to show themselves off as the great center of civilization of Europe. They don't. There's a lot of countries that...
I was just recently in Vienna, Prague,
Yes.
and Budapest, and there was none of this elitism.
Yes.
Over there
because
either.
all those countries over there, in my ancestral country, Germany, we've all been through horrific wars. And we know where this egoism can lead.
Yes.
We really know. And it can lead to tank armies coming through your country and being really bad.
Right.
And a lot of people are going to get messed up.
Right.
The Koreans, even with the Korean War, don't know this yet. They still don't know this. And this makes them dangerous. And President Moon right now he's really going for the unification with North Korea. He made a statement, not only this recently about the intelligence sharing, he made a statement that if the North Korean and South Korean communists combined, we'd be greater Japan. They're fixated on this revenge against Japan. They're fixated on that.
That it begins to become obvious when you start reading the rhetoric, not only from the government but also from the news. So so recently, one of the major things that happened was the delinking of the intelligence sharing. And,
Yes.
And South Korea is saying that they would share intelligence through the United States. One thing I heard regarding that is that if North Korea decides to attack Japan and South Korea relays that information through the United States, it delays Japan's response time for their missile stuff.
Matt, you missed something.
But hold on. But that to me doesn't, because I don't really think missile strikes are that threatening.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
like this whole idea that it could delay our response time by 5 to 10 seconds, but at the same time, the North can't even launch a missile strike. So,
Ladies and gentlemen.
So what do you think about that?
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, everyone focuses on the missiles, which is a red herring. Forget them. The North Koreans are not going to do that.
Well, they simply cannot.
They can shoot some.
Well, they can attack South Korea, but they can't attack.
Yes, they
Japan.
can attack Japan. They have missiles that can hit Japan.
Well, but they're not going to hit Japan. They're never going to hit Japan.
Why do you say that?
Because there's already responses in place, and it's very far from North Korea to Japan, and the logistics that it would take to accurately hit with missiles Japan and actually cause any damage to human life are so out of the range of frontline strategy that it doesn't make any sense that is the tact to take.
It's in my book, my most recent book. And I predict when I'm simulating a war between North.
But that's North in the South.
Wait.
Right?
Listen, please.
Because you're not saying the attack from the North. You're saying attack from the North in the South.
No. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Really?
Missiles are missiles. And what can the North Korean missiles, what they possess, what can they do? Very little. And I estimate on a massive missile barrage, the best they can do is maybe kill 10,000 Japanese.
That's after infiltrating the South Korean military.
No. It doesn't matter.
Currently, right now,
if they shot off
from their barragements,
they have about 200 missiles focused on Japan. 200.
And
Scuds.
you're saying that
Scuds.
the Japanese military or the self-defense forces would not be able to shoot most of them out of the sky?
That's a myth. They can't. Those systems totally don't work.
Thad?
Nothing. It's useless.
Right.
It's simply, ladies and gentlemen, here I say, it's simply American corporations selling useless stuff that costs a lot of money and makes them a lot of profit and impoverishes our Japanese military for buying things that really work. They don't work.
It makes Trump happy.
No,
it's the
he
best.
has to, otherwise he'll be killed. This is all big business in America. The missiles whole thing is fake. What was it? The 1991 Gulf War in Israel, Iraq shot 88 missiles into Israel. How many people they kill?
Probably 7.
2.
Yeah.
Another 80 died of heart attacks and stress. But, okay, the Israelis
I just can't take this stress. I want to go get my olives.
I mean, let's put it this way.
My synagogue, what's happening?
Japan is not prepared. Japan doesn't have air raid shelters. Israel does. They're prepared for attacks upon them. But 88 Scuds shot into the country. And Israel is a small place, densely populated. Japan is densely populated, but it's a lot of mountains. So most of those missiles will come down the mountains, mustn't they? And very few of them, I mean, I'll put this, I live in Tokyo, everybody listening out there, I live in Tokyo. And let's say they want to hit Shinjuku Station. I live about 3 kilometers away, something like that. Asagaya, 4 kilometers away.
7.
7, thank you. He's a scientist. That makes, if they shoot 50, 20 of them come down to my neighborhood. Well, 10 maybe. Because they're not that accurate that they can hit. This is Soviet-style old.
Do you think they have that kind of geolocation engineering and trajectory on their barragement systems?
Not very much.
Nah, I don't.
They fake everything. Okay, one thing.
So-
Everyone says North Korea says they have the atom bomb. They fake everything in North Korea. In South Korea, they lie to their teeth. This is a Korean characteristic. Now, I'm saying
All right.
this.
Yes.
And people are saying, oh, no, you can't say that about human beings because human beings are the same everywhere. No, they're not. Now, I grew up in America.
I like Koreans and I like Korea. I'm just saying this right
so
now.
me too. Me too. But now you admit Italians are more romantic than Germans, right? You admit that.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And you say Germans are more hardworking than Italians.
Southern Germans are more hardworking than Southern Italians.
Aha, we're getting somewhere, right? Now, see, I'm saying characteristics based upon nationality or race or something like that, which you can't say in the West now, all this politically correctness. Koreans,
I don't want to be politically correct.
frankly speaking, lie. Now, I have a book. It's called 1907 with Ito Hirobumi.
Okay, I don't want to go back in 100 years in the past.
Because why? Why I'm saying this?
Yeah.
Japan had not annexed Korea at that time. This guy, William S. Lind,
Yes.
had come to Korea at the invitation of Ito Hirobumi. He's a friend.
Yes.
He's a professor at Yale, American. And he made this remark, which I remember. Japan at that time was already having judges, magistrates, sit in Korean courts and do Korean cases. And they were very popular because they couldn't be bribed. Yet, even if someone had an open and shut case, they lied all the time. And it was very hard to find out the truth. So they had to question second persons and third persons to find out really what happened in a certain thing.
Yeah.
It's a Korean characteristic.
But I'm trying to talk about the case of the Koreans withdrawing from the secrecy, the intelligence.
This has one meaning. This has one meaning, Matt. This has one meaning. It means war. It means war. It means fuck you, Japan, and fuck you, America.
Like, why do you think that the South Korean government, is this just a retaliatory measure?
No. They're going to make what they believe is their great empire. This is their right. I sent you that video that they found in some. They believe that they've always been the greatest race of the world.
Right.
If you really want to find out how, I'm going to say something here, how they're thinking, go read some Unification Church propaganda.
What's Unification Church?
The Moonies.
Yes.
Their stuff is just like North Korean stuff. You read their stuff, it comes off just like North Korean stuff.
It's pretty popular for a while.
And Moon Jae-in is the same thing.
Who's Moon Jae-in?
The president of South Korea.
Yes.
And I'm not that drunk yet, ladies and gentlemen, but he's working hard to make me so. So, anyway, no, they really believe this stuff, and they believe they're a chosen race, and they should rule the world, and they've just never made it. Okay,
Kind of
but
how I feel about myself as a folk musician.
you could do that. The dangerous thing is so many countries are concentrated here in Korea that any upset of the balance could be a larger war. But President Moon Jae-in is dissing everyone. He's going for his great dream to unify the country right away. And he believes if they unify right away, somehow magically, it's going to be a wonderful place and it's going to be the paradise of earth. And what he's truly going to make is a hell on earth that could possibly ignite a world holocaust.
I'm reading from the Korea Times right now.
All right.
This is an article by Kim Yu-chul and Park Ji-won. A senior presidential aide reaffirmed Wednesday that South Korea will not consider renewing a military intelligence sharing agreement with Japan. He also accused Tokyo of attempting to rewrite history to hide its past wrongdoings before and after World War II. So it began with a senior presidential aide reaffirmed Wednesday that South Korea will not reconsider renewing a military intelligence sharing program with Japan, which starts out with like a very just standard news way of saying things. Then it says he also accused Tokyo of attempting to rewrite history to hide its past wrongdoings before and after World War II. It's a very rapid shift there. Quote, the removal of South Korea from a Japanese white list of preferred trading partners finally took effect Wednesday. This is very regrettable. Japan is seriously damaging mutual trust. South Korea clearly has no plans to disregard the 1965 treaty normalizing diplomatic relations between the two countries. Money. Japan is asking us to do something about last year's South Korean Supreme Court rulings that ordered Japanese companies to compensate South Korean conscripted as forced laborers. It's always that shift, in the last half of the sentence. It's like, we are virtuous, you suck.
Yes,
but
yes,
that
yes.
was the decision by our country's highest court. As if that's our sovereign rights and jurisdiction should be respected, as the government isn't in a position to intervene in such rulings. This is also how a lot of the American Democrats tweet. They're like, we believe in freedom and fair exchange.
As long as we get what we want.
Yeah, that's why we think it's important to restrict everything anyone says that doesn't agree with anything we have to say. And if you disagree with that, too bad, you're a Nazi. You read it at first. It's like, yeah. What? Sorry, what? What the fuck are you talking about? Kim, who is Japan is aiming to rewrite history. Beyond the 1965 treaty, individual victims have rights to claim compensation for Japan's wartime wrongdoings. So beyond the treaty was already signed, but we need to beyond. There's a new one. The rulings just confirmed this position. Hold on. Moreover, Japan expressed its view that the rights to claim damages of Japanese victims of forced labor in Siberia during World War II had not been removed by the joint declaration. Because trust is the backbone and central point in terms of sharing sensitive military information, Seoul has no option but to end the intelligence sharing pact due to a lack of this.
They are insane.
That's one of the main newspapers of the Korea Times, written by two people. And that's the tact, not only by the writers, but the government. And that doesn't read like journalism to me, to be honest.
This is totally propaganda.
There's no university professors. There's no this makes sense versus this doesn't make sense, counterpoint. There's no comparing and contrast.
All this.
It's just in sync, unison, go fuck yourself is basically what it's saying.
If you don't write that in Korea, you can't have a job.
Right.
One, if you think differently, and I've had Koreans talk to me very secretly and quietly that they do think differently, but they don't dare say so in Korea. They're looking for someone else, the great white knight from overseas, to come help. They're really looking for America. And
No, they're looking for China.
That's left. There's still people on the right who really look for America to come. America does not understand this whole thing because America is crippled by its, and I use a word that's not politically correct, crippled by its interpretation of Japan as evil in World War II. Look, America and Japan had a hard war. What Americans don't understand is Koreans were able and willing soldiers of the empire. And when you get to the POW stuff, 90% of that, the POWs being banged around were by Koreans. It was, Taiwanese and Koreans were Japanese citizens. But ethnic Taiwanese were easygoing. Japanese were strict but correct, but they might have killed people sometimes. And the Koreans were just cruel. Just cruel. They're just cruel. And I'm sorry, this is part of the Korean race. It's part of their identity. It's part of their DNA, their genes. It would have taken Japan another 35 years to civilize that country. I just said this.
All right.
Yes.
I have this I just read that article about how the take on Japan is like this post 1965 thing is not enough, even though everybody's apologized. This is an article.
There was nothing to apologize for. I know the history. Now, please go and
I would say it was whether or not your opinion is correct or not. The apology already has happened,
and the apology already happened.
So,
and Japan has paid the money.
And
Japan's paid
it's
the
not
money.
as if Korea's in a bad point. It's not like Korea's like the Aboriginals of Australia.
They're,
or,
a reasonable country right now.
It's not as though like they're living on a reservation.
Okay,
They got some
there's-
of the most popular things in the world. K-pop is really good music.
Yeah, okay. I'm not a fan, but right. Okay, go
No,
ahead.
it's
Yeah,
way
sure.
better than J-pop. K-pop,
J-pop is totally manufactured crap.
K-pop,
That I'll go with.
K-pop has the writers of like 1960s, 70s America style, and the display of the 1990s and 2000s. So the writers of the music are really super talented. I was surprised how catchy and how well written and how dynamic K-pop can actually be. And compared,
can I say something here?
Compared to J-pop, which is just like D D D D D D D D D D D D D, and that's it.
So, up to about 15, 20 years ago, I used to be a painter. I used to paint a lot. I'm a surrealist. Years ago in
You
Korea,
don't say.
I sort of somehow popped into a exhibition in Busan in Korea, and I was amazed at the work that was exhibited.
Yeah, modern Korean art is exceptional. Film
it was good
and
stuff.
music is amazing.
This stuff takes time to develop.
And I'm not pandering. It's awesome.
When I would go to the national museums and stuff like, all you would see is what I would really call copies of Chinese. And really, through my study of Korean history, I got to think that through the Yi Dynasty era, all that time, they would destroy anything that was anything different. Anything different was destroyed. Whereas Japan developed like ukiyo-e, kabuki. That's another reason they hate Japan so much. Now, in recent years in South Korea, they've begun to develop different things. It's beginning. It takes hundreds of years to develop this stuff, but
It also
beginning.
takes open markets.
Right. Now, what Moon Jae-in is attempting now, he's going to make South Korea North Korea. So they can be one big country and everyone can be miserable together. It's really what he's doing. And he believes.
I really don't. The guy's a nutcase, man.
Yeah, but he's got 20% of the population behind him. And I have another thing I have to say here. I have a friend. He's a Korean former Air Force colonel. And he's 90-something years old. He fought for the Imperial Japanese Air Force, Army Air Force. Then he fought for the South Korean Air Force. And he was in the Korean War, and after that he was in America, and then he became a colonel of the South Korean Air Force. He's retired, and he lives in Japan now. And he's so happy I put part of what he's been trying to promote in my book, which is the 1980 revolution in Gwangju, Southwest Korea, was actually North Korean inspired. And there was a 120,000 man, partly woman, unit, 600 fighters, 600 political people that were trying to make a revolution in South Korea at the time. They failed. They had 100,000 troops in North Korea ready to come right in.
Right.
But he's trying to save South Korea now. And recently he went back to South Korea. And he said to everybody, this guy Moon, he's just going, and he talked to a lot of military officers. Are you people insane? What's going to happen to you in a new Korea that he's going to make? You're going to be killed.
Right.
And they're all apathetic. And from what I've been reading too, I have some very interesting blog sources into South Korea, and by Americans, but they're domestic news sources, and I get a real feeling that everyone in South Korea is waiting for America to come save them. I'm really sorry, folks, ladies and gentlemen. Now in Japanese, I get the same thing. Japanese people. Well, we're not under the same threat like South Korea is right now in Japan. But, America's going to help us out. America's our big brother. America is teetering on the brink of civil war, breakup, and death of half the population, and going back to the lifestyle of the year 900 in Merovingian France. With, no electricity, the main transport system will be the horse. Seriously, I know this. I study this. I'm a Kalapsnik. I'm a scholar of Dmitry Orlov and James Kunstler. Look those names up. But
Trying to find this song. It's not happening. Anyways, it's a Korean song. Getting back to this news article. This is about, so we were talking about the aspects of the rhetoric against Japan in the previous article, which is like one sentence is like, we want to do this. That's why Japan can't beat that, right? And this article says Samsung Electronics is expanding its supply of smartphone components. And though Samsung is still the largest seller of smartphones in the world, it's been struggling through sluggish market conditions. Against this backdrop, industry analysts added Samsung increased cooperation with Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo will sustain the company's growth momentum. All of those are very huge Chinese smartphone makers.
I'm not a businessman. I'm a military analyst.
Yeah,
so
but
I would say right there, they're doing this out of spite, and they're going to swallow it up.
China has the One Belt, One Road, or the Road and Belt Initiative, and that's supplying the second and third world with smartphone-capable technology.
And are they going to do anything nice for Koreans?
Well, I don't think so, but Korea wants to piggyback on that movement. So
why would they do something nice for Koreans? And for the Chinese, I would say they would look at Koreans as one more ethnic minority.
But hold on. Samsung recently announced Xiaomi, which is one of the world's largest cell phone makers and has an increasing market share in South America. The world's number 4 smartphone maker will use Samsung's ISOCELL Bright GW1 image sensor for its new smartphone. The Korean company also said it developed the world's first 108 megapixel image sensor for mobile devices, and Xiaomi will use the ultra high resolution. Xiaomi is a very cheap smartphone maker in China, and they're going to Huawei will be like the main one, and then Xiaomi will basically be like an Android copycat throughout Central Asia, the Middle East, and then moving into North and South Africa as well. So we can see that, but there's no negative rhetoric here. It's just factual. Besides image sensors, Samsung Display will also supply its OLED displays panels to Chinese makers, including Huawei. According to industry officials, Samsung Display will supply its OLED panels for Huawei's upcoming Mate 30 and Mate 30 Pro smartphones, which are the best smartphones in the world, by the way. Huawei have used Samsung Display panels for its products in the past, and a Samsung Display official refused to confirm the supply of OLED displays for Huawei's upcoming premium smartphones, but the company has closely cooperated with the Chinese smartphone maker. So when it comes to Japan, every sentence is like, Korea's awesome, Japan sucks. But when it comes to the same website, by the way, basically on the same day, when it comes to economic cooperation with China, it's just like, yeah, let's get this going. We're ready, and we've already announced that it's already happening.
Well, do so,
But the rhetoric is completely separate, right? It's the same newspaper, but the style of article is completely different. And these aren't like op-ed famous people. It's just like articles.
Average people.
It's articles written and approved within the website itself.
Even 38 years ago when I lived in Korea, I mean, it was, it's all this stuff. Well, we work harder than Japan. We're going to come to Japan. It was always this kind of stuff. Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You lived in Japan some years now. How many times do you hear Japanese rag on Korea?
Okay, you know what? Good question, because I actually asked my wife this the other day. I said, like, what do you think about war with Korea? And she looked at me like I was, like, asking the weirdest question in the world.
Yeah.
Japanese people don't think about war with Korea.
Right.
And I actually, to lead into this, because this is a good topic that I wanted to talk about today, this article that I have, I know I'm reading a lot today, but I just want to supply facts. Like actual facts.
Right.
This one is from the Korea Times as well. And this is about tourism between Korea and Japan, and how what the numbers say versus what the rhetoric says. And that's an important key factor. And this article has been changed since I originally read it a few days ago. I couldn't find the original copy because
I copy and paste stuff because it's,
I agree with you. Okay, more Koreans angered by Tokyo's trade restrictions on Seoul are refraining from visiting Japan, with the number visiting Japan in July hitting the lowest monthly total in 10 months. However, the upward trend of Japanese to Korea is continuing.
Yeah, never mind.
As a result of the Japanese government's decision to tighten its control on exports to Korea, a widespread anti-Japan campaign has gained ground in Korea, with people boycotting Japanese goods and trips to the country. The Japan National Tourism Organization said Thursday about 561,000 Koreans visited Japan last month, down 7.6% year on year, and the lowest figure since September 2018 when an earthquake struck Hokkaido. According to the Japanese organization, worsening bilateral diplomatic ties, Koreans' growing appetite for Vietnam and China as vacation spots, and the sluggish Korean economy contributed to this decline. In the past, when natural disasters stopped tourists from visiting Japan, the government spent extra money to promote its tourism industry. However, this time, given that the decline was due to public sentiment, there has been no specific measure under review by the government to attract Korean travelers, said somebody, or an official. As Japan is losing Korean tourists, local airlines have decided to cut their flights to Japanese cities, highlighted by Korean Air's plan to halt operations on 3 routes between the two countries. Unlike the declining number of Koreans visiting Japan, the number of Japanese tourists to Korea is not decreasing. So that just proves one thing. But the original article also said that this just proves that Tokyo's plan to restrict exports to Korea is not working, and the punishment is totally invalid. Like, that's what the original article said. But at the same time, tourism to Japan is at an historic high, the highest ever it's ever been.
I have read things that the Japanese tourism in Korea is just disappearing.
Japanese to Korea?
Yeah, they're not going.
But at the same time, when Japanese people do go there, it's not because they're worried about political tensions. However, this whole thing about the economic punishment of Korea has not affected Japan's desire to go there. It's an insane argument.
It's just back to this old Japanese complex. The Koreans really want to be Japanese. They do. They despise Japan for being better than they are. They think, since they are closer to China and the Confucian rhetoric, they're closer to China, the center of civilization, they should be the superior. Yet, in all ways, they see Japan is outdoing them in many ways.
Yes.
And what really makes them angry is that they're stuck in this very confusing, and their emotions and the things they're directing against Japan, they're doing the same thing in their own country. And that's why they can't make things. They can't do things. It comes out now, all this stuff about screaming about Japan, that almost every product in Korea is actually mostly made in Japan. And
a lot of the components have a source. With how globalized everything is now, there's almost an impossible way. If you try to say this network is completely independent, it's
but what I'm saying here is that so much of what is in Korea, they're so dependent on Japan. I got this from somebody. In the last 2017 Winter Olympics, they couldn't make an ice skate rink. It was made by Japan.
Right.
And all this kind of stuff. And this infuriates them even more. And they go into more overdrive. And they go overseas, and they're going to Germany now. They're again in Germany. And they like Germany because they say Germany apologized correctly. Japan never apologized for what they did for Korea. And I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, Koreans were Japanese troops. Same uniform. Tenoika Banzai. Banzai to the emperor. This was Korea at the time. And even I read stuff from Japanese people who lived in Korea at the time. The Koreans are more patriotic than the Japanese living in Korea at the time. This was Korea. There's no victims. There is no victims. They're not a victim at all. Okay, this is hyperbole. I've heard this. I've heard this. I can't say I document this is true. But
let's call this Japan Century in Review.
Why are so many pachinko parlors in front of train stations? Now, I do know...
Because it's called pachinko.
No, they're Korean. And in the occupation...
Don't you tell me that the Japanese police are not engaged in the management of pachinko parlors.
I happen to know a little bit about that, but yes, that's true. And they get money. But the Koreans occupied storefront territory in front of stations after the war.
Good for them. Congratulations. You made a smart decision.
And America does work with them. I know this. I've experienced it. However, it's not correct. It's not right. There was no police force in Japan. As a Japanese, there was nothing. And Koreans are so awful, they suddenly became...
Why do you say Koreans are so awful? Why can't you phrase it a different way? Koreans aren't awful. They're simply not awful.
They were us.
No, Kate, you need to say they were us differently.
As Japanese.
Yes.
They were Japanese, becoming Japanese. When America came in, America won, they choose the winner. Suddenly, they're American. Yes, we are victims. We are victims. Now, okay, ladies and gentlemen, you maybe think, man, this is an asshole for saying all this kind of stuff. Now, let me say something. And there's a lot of Americans who listen to this, right?
Most of this, the audience of this podcast.
If you're an American living in South Korea, you had better think. You had better think. What Moon is doing going to North Korea, it means you're going to die if you live in South Korea. I'm sorry, you might have a South Korean wife.
What about people who live in Jeju?
Same thing.
I don't think so.
You are in danger. Really, it's come to that now. Now, me, as a Caucasian, who I'm talking always as a Japanese rightist, I'm never going to be in danger in this country. Japanese people are that way.
Yeah, that's very true.
Koreans,
if they don't like you, they'll just ignore you.
Right, but I write too many books. I have too many friends. I have enough people. Thank you very much. But in Korea, you could be in serious trouble. It doesn't matter you have Korean friends. You have Korean friends who like you. I know that. And I've had that experience. But it's going to be a very anti-foreign thing. And Americans aren't going to be the next. After they're bashing Japanese for a while. And I would tell any Japanese person, and I tell people I work with, I'm going to pretend I'm Chinese. Look, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. This is actually
interesting because you're talking about policy. So obviously there's a massive anti-Japanese rhetoric policy going on.
It's going to switch very quickly
and
to
then
anti-American.
You're saying just like how with the leftist American thing where it's like we need to fix racism, and then if you're this...
No. What I'm saying is Korea's going to go very nationalist.
It's an insatiable appetite.
It's going to go very nationalist, and it's going to go very anti-American quickly. And I'll tell you this, I've seen signs the American military is preparing for this. They're preparing to get dependents out quickly. And they're preparing, they understand this was possible. And the United States ambassador was nearly assassinated a few years ago. And this is not the first time. It's happened back in the 1890s. They have attacked them. They assassinated America. In America.
Oh yeah. You know what? I like to there's several levels of differentiation that I like to do. It's like, okay, we have the political class, the working class, and then we also have the domestic class and the international class. I find that because I've been to Korea a few times, and it's just just like Koreans, you're like, hey, let's get some noodles, let's get some beer, and everyone's going to be okay with that. Who's going to cut the scissors on the meat now? Because I'm a little bit hot, when you're out for the
right.
Korean
I've been there.
It's actually really fucking cool. But the expatriated class, actually, this is actually kind of similar to a lot of the expatriated class of North American whites. They're very liberal, and they always try to kind of influence schools and education with throw away this math and learn about racism kind of stuff.
It's known, eh?
And I've often found that researching Korean activism in places like San Francisco often has quite close ties to Marxism and stuff like that.
Very much.
Yeah, so there is a link there.
They're looking for legitimacy. They're looking for legitimacy because they never ever did anything themselves.
I think I grew up thinking South Korea is a very legitimate place.
It's okay. It's okay.
Like they got whatever you want. Whatever you want, it's there.
But see, it was created by America, not by themselves.
It was
It's created by America.
Well, when there's these values that are imbued, and then when they're adopted, they succeed as long as you polish it in a certain way. All right.
Biology.
All right. So we're going to move away from Korea, and we're going to talk about something else right away. All right, Max.
Yes.
By the way, I often disagree quite a lot with what you say, but there's no doubt.
You're Norwegian. I'm Swedish. That's why.
That's basically it. But there's absolutely no doubt that political conflict is increasing between Korea and Japan, and it's no longer necessarily just about like statues being erected or little protests.
It's getting deep.
It's getting deeper and deeper, and so I appreciate the analysis. And what can I say?
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, watch out. It may come to your neighborhood.
It just might. And, there's seriously different factions of expatriated Koreans. Just like, some of them are not even considering themselves nationalistically Korean anymore, like Korean descendants, like in New Zealand, they might hold some sort of political beliefs or something, but they integrate.
You go somewhere, you go to another country, you live somewhere, you got a wife, you get married, and you might be both ethnic Korean. You want your kids to go to nice school and to work out well, and then because you're ethnic Korean, someone's going to wrap you into something, and if you don't do it, you're going to get killed. Whoa! Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. This is what they're facing.
Yeah, I'm not an activist. I don't like activism, especially in the past 10 years.
Right.
And
activism just pulls people into stuff that maybe they don't want to be in, but then they say, because you're you and what you are, you do this or we kill you. And that's the background behind.
Or invest your identity into this. And then you do that, and then you realize like it's like this thing that you didn't really ever want to do, and you wasted all your time trying to do it. So I just say...
And sometimes it can get you in trouble with your local police. The countries that you're hosting or living in may not appreciate it, and it can be bad.
I've never joined an activist group living in Japan.
Right.
I've joined music groups. I've joined language groups, but never like
the last activist group I joined was the United States Marine Corps.
I've noticed that actually in Japan, the music scene in some areas became very activist, where you try to go to a show and it's like a benefit for beheading victims or something like that, or rape victims. So you open the door and you're ready to like see like a fun band, and there's a bunch of like overweight feminists going like, "We need your $10 donation so that we can save the beheaded." And you're like, "Ugh,"
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like death cult. Like activism has become death cult in the past 10 years, in my opinion. When you join activists in the past 10 years, you're basically joining a death cult. So I might even be more extreme than you, because when I say that, I mean it. I mean like it's a death cult. Climate alarmism. We're gonna die in 12 years. We need to not fly anymore.
It won't take that long.
I don't want.
It won't be like that.
But give me security. Call the police. Like all this stuff. Like I'm just like, this is insane. I don't like him. Anyways, so recently I've been using some QR code payment systems.
Mm-hmm. I have no idea what that is.
A QR code is a black and white symbol that can be read by software and a camera that can trigger a reaction.
Okay.
And the reaction could be linking to a website, linking to your books, linking to your Amazon page or whatever. But it could also be confirming your payment systems as well.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of PayPay?
Oh, yeah.
Origami Pay?
I know that stuff exists, but I don't.
Bitcoin?
I'm not involved.
Yeah. Right. I've been using some of these systems recently.
Okay.
And in China, there's basically a two-tier system. There's WeChat Pay and Alipay. and these are two major QR code payment systems. QR means quick response.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And the code is just like it's a square with a bunch of black and white dots in the middle. Do I have any on me? No. It's basically an advanced form of a barcode that can be read by cameras. And for me, this is kind of a financial revolution. Because it gives anybody anywhere access to financial activity. It doesn't need to be regulated by banks.
Okay. But see, I come to the society that cash is something that's sponsored by the government. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is imagination.
It can be connected to the government. It can be connected to your bank account. And it comes from your bank account.
I would never do that.
Well, there are more and more systems in place where cashless payments can add a lot of convenience.
See, I'm even leery of cash.
Yeah, me too.
I'm the kind of guy that believes, like back in the Roman Empire, you had land and you had gold, and you buried your gold in land and hoped that no barbarians would come find it.
Go to the convenience store and pay for your Sapporo's in gold.
Wait a little longer, try and pay for it anything else, because electricity won't exist in most places. I'm a clapsnick, remember?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think nuclear power might be able to solve a lot of these problems. Yeah. Roll the water over the reactors and power our currency. It's a crazy idea. But anyways, so basically China is a cashless society. I was there in May of this year, and nobody uses cash. And even like in roadside trucks that serve food, they don't take cash. They pay via QR code. In a low trust society like China, this was very damaging, because in the past you would give somebody fake dollars and they would give you fake DVDs. But with this new system, when your cash is attached to a digital payment, you don't have a fake DVD salesman coming up to you. And when you pay for something, you don't have fake RMB, renminbi, or yuan paying for that transaction. So you're actually linking it to your bank account. But this goes into this whole social credit score thing, which is
China's really going on this kind of stuff, aren't they?
Oh, it's done.
Okay.
It's not going. It's done.
May I ask your interpretation of the internal security situation of China?
Actually, I think that because 10 years ago, the issue of fake goods and fake currency in China had I think it was a lower trust society. But because of technology linking your smartphone and your number to your bank account, it's increasing the amount of trust in society. So these QR codes are actually, there's a multi-level process going on here. What's going on is that's legitimizing the Chinese currency, which has always been a problem. And there's still a lot of currency paper-wise to be able to dump into American markets. And there's also the Great Firewall of China, right? Which is the computer system that prevents other companies from hacking it. So by the Chinese people, by 1.1 billion people now using these digital currency payment systems, they're able to migrate their currency legitimately into a digital format hidden behind a great firewall. And so they're going to be able to establish a middle class that can survive on $15,000 to $25,000 a year, and then the CCP and the PLA are going to be able to take 90% of that of the country's GDP and invest it for their overseas.
So you think China's basically stable?
Yeah.
They're running out of food.
Nope, they're not.
Okay.
So China is basically abundance in all of this stuff. And in food. I was there. Food is
But their
everywhere.
pigs are dying.
Okay, the pigs are one thing because that's a virus issue. Of course. But that's not necessarily representative of everything. And when I was there, they're good right now. They're good.
Okay.
They're good. They're
Okay.
good. They're
Okay.
good. They're
Okay.
good. Like the prosperity in China right now is in many of the regions is insane. The freedom of movement for those that deserve it and their credit scores is
Credit
great.
scores,
Yes. We can say that 13 million people were deprived of buying train tickets and high-speed train tickets and plane tickets in China because of their low credit scores. But of a population of 1.4 billion, it's kind of like saying America has the highest prison population as well.
Right.
We're
That is
comparing
true.
apples to
That is
apples,
true.
and both are bad. But it's not as if
Right.
it's not as if everyone
Right.
in China is getting their organs harvested and getting, having poor credit scores and not being able to travel and not being able to have when I was there, things were good. It was clean. It was safe. Beijing is safer by 25-fold than Vancouver.
Okay.
When I was in Beijing, I was like, I feel safer and the food is better and the transportation is better than Vancouver.
As an ancestral European, I hear about the Paris subway, and it's like, don't ride it.
Yeah. And this is a major thing. It's just like, well, we have our rights and our liberties. Yeah, but when you go on these subways now in Shanghai and Beijing, like the modern ones, you're like, this is crazy advanced technology. They have the technology now. China has the technology. China has the technology. They have the facial recognition. They have the banking. They have the tracking. They have your gait recognition, how you walk. They have your voice recognition, how you talk. Everything right now, technologically speaking, China has it. Their systems are 20 or 30 times more superior than anywhere else in the world in terms of software and applications and business applications and integration into how you use your smartphone in your daily life, which is everything these days. So China now is king in terms of all of this. It's hands down, it's won. It's done. It's over. China wins. In fact, I know that several Japanese companies are not going to be using facial recognition technology developed by European and Canadian companies, but instead are going with the Chinese ones because it's, frankly speaking, better, cheaper, more advanced, more flexible, and easier to use. It's state-backed in part, but that doesn't matter because when you're looking for shit as a business, you're just looking for the best shit that you want to use to integrate into your company. China has it. It's done. It's over. There's no way to compete with it at all until European companies and American companies realize the type of scale that they're dealing against. Everything was sucked into China through Hong Kong, built behind a firewall, and then constructed and reconstructed and reconstructed and reconstructed over 30 years' time with no interference from any other company or government in the world. And in addition to that, they've also...
there's a lot of smart Chinese.
They're smart. The Chinese companies like Huawei will build a city for 30,000 people and put 20,000 people engineers, software engineers, and just give them the most advanced technology and say, make it better. You have $100 billion. That's what the CCP does. The Chinese Communist Party skims off the top, but then reinvests it into these future technologies.
That's actually kind of unique if you talk about communist parties, but that's another story.
It's communism with Chinese characteristics. That's what they say.
Yes.
Dude, it's insane what's going on over there right now. And I didn't even mean to talk about that because I was trying to talk about like QR code payments in Japan. But basically what's going on in China, technologically speaking, with cyberspace and 5G and all that shit, they have it beat anywhere else in the world, and they're going to be able to offer it at a very cheaper price at the cost of infiltration to all of these African countries, all of these Middle Eastern countries, all of these Central Asian countries, and there's going to be a splinter net. It's an internet developed between the Western world and the Eastern world. The Western world will probably have a slower internet that kind of putters by and meets our needs, but protects our rights. And then the Eastern one will be a hyper fast one with the best facial recognition technology and access to banking information without having to use cards at the cost of monitoring all of your fucking data, by the government in real time. So there we go.
Impressive.
Yeah, it is. And in Japan, we're trying to implement this, but in a Japanese way, where instead of being monitored in real time by the government, it's isolated and it's observed in a minutia of ways, so that your privacy data is very strict in Japan, and if you violate privacy data in Japan, no Japanese person basically trusts you, right? If you leak their data and stuff like that. Let's leave it at this. Once a pioneer in cashless transactions, Japan is now lagging behind the world's biggest economies, increasingly as the world's increasingly. Sorry, fuck that. We're done.
Actually, ladies and
hold on. I'll say this. I have been using QR code payments in Japan not as a way to replace my payments, but as a way to increase my payments. Basically, I see technology as an avenue to use. So if I don't have any cash, I can use a credit card. If I don't have a credit card, I can use my smartphone, which has an application where I can scan something in a store and pay for it. Now, I'm not going to use my smartphone to purchase sensitive things. But when I exit the gym and I want to go to the convenience store and buy a drink, I don't need to bring my wallet with me. So if I purchase something through an application and it's a QR code based thing, and I buy a sports drink, do I care if the world knows about it? Probably not. I don't care, because the shop is already queuing in my age and my sex before I even buy it. The people behind the register are automating our purchases anyways. So I hate the idea, but the convenience is an exchange. I'm not going to be putting smart speakers into my bedroom, but I'm also not going to be using QR code payments to buy sensitive purchases. So what do you do? We used to use gold. We now use cash. A lot of people use credit cards. It's just another step. Max.
I would be careful.
Falcon passport.
Thank you for listening. You made it. What'd you think? Was that too far? Was it coherent? I don't know. But when tensions rise, thought patterns change. And I think we could hear them changing today. Thank you for listening to the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys next time. Let's let the craziness roll, because we all know everything is hitting the fan at the moment. And I intend to know what it's like before I get there. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Looking for someone to play. We'll come along right now and play along with these flames. Come on and play with these flames. Yeah. Like the way we all like to, from time to time, engage in a little masquerade. Come on and play with these flames. Yeah. says, hey, I found a road that led me to Bowberry's Grove. Yeah, I found a road led to Bowberry's Grove. Yeah, but I found a... They were saying no one rides them trains. Canadian government was saying no one rides them trains. Well, hey, I ride one every day. Yeah, that July. I hover right on that mama all the time. From Cowenji down from Georgie, back up to Cowenji, 'cause hey, that's where I found my roads that led me to Bowberry's Grove. Yeah, I found a road that led to Bowberry's Grove. Yeah, I found a road. Well, hey, now most people can't see the way unless that road has already been paved. But because of my man, I had no problem finding that path that led to Bowberry's Grove. For some things, just like the way we all like to masquerade. Come play with me, Dad, broken stodgy, back up to it. Because hey, that's where I found my roads that led me to Bowberry's Grove. Yeah, I found that road that led to Bowberry's Grove. Well, yeah, I found that road. Yeah, I found the road. I found that road. Yeah.
Impossible.